You already know what it is. It's Tier List Tuesday. What's going on with y'all, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day is going phenomenal. And if it isn't, well, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. Speaking of days, it is Tier List Tuesday. And today we are going to be covering over the meta tier list post Albaz Strike. Now, Albaz Strike is going to be coming out this weekend, guys. This weekend, the meta is going to change. And not only will I be talking about some of those changes that very much could affect the entire meta, I'll also even have a video for some strategies that you may not know that Albaz is going to change. So of course, if you want to see that particular video, be sure to destroy that subscribe button, but also be sure to let me know down below in the comment section, not only that you want to see that video, but what cards am I missing, and if you disagree or agree with this tier list. So let's go ahead and jump on in. As you guys already know, I have 4 different categories. I no longer have an, oh no, what are you doing, baby, for this tier list? Because to be honest with you, I think that every single one of these decks are at the very least rogue, and we'd have to find out what type of hierarchy in rogue I'd put them in a rogue tier list. Starting off with Dinos. Where exactly would I put Dinos on this meta tier list post Albaz Strike? Well, this particular deck cannot use the adventure token engine, nor could it use, well, I mean, maybe it could use the branded engine. It doesn't need to special summon from the extra deck, so being locked into only fusion summoning outside of the extra deck is not bad, and the fusion cards can be put to the graveyard as an alternative monster for double evolution pill. Regardless, I'm going to put Dinos in a solid tier 2 status. The reason why is because Ultimate Conductor Tyranno still does its thing when it pops off. It can flip monsters like Wandering Griffin Rider and Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer face down and then send them to the graveyard, preventing them from being used again. And while the deck does rely on its normal summon monsters effect through Soul Leading and Animador and Archosaur, locking it out of the adventure token engine, Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer is still a card that you can use to recover for your plays and special summon free dinos. Cyframe Gear Gamma on the main board is, I mean, like, that's Dino's heaven right there. And Miscellaneous Saris to 1 may hurt, but if that card comes to 3, this deck might have just been tier 1. Gotta put it as tier 2, very solid going second deck that possibly could use the branded engine. On the flip side, I don't think Burning Abyss could use the branded engine as well, because you mill so many cards from your deck to your graveyard, and the theme for Burning Abyss should probably be get Fairy Tale Snow to your graveyard and abuse it like no other. On top of that, Tour Guide from the Underworld is probably one of the most hittable starters in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. Infinite Impermanence, Effect Veiler, anything, it does not matter. Just hit the Tour Guide from the Underworld, and sometimes a Burning Abyss player will end their turn, which is really unfortunate for Burning Abyss, but when this deck gets going, boy, it is a really solid deck. Needs the correct rogue player to be able to play at a high level competition. ABC, boys! ABC can actually play all of the engines that we talked about. It can play the adventure token engine. It can play the Destiny Hero package. It can probably even play the branded package, but I'm still going to put it in a rogue. Now, there is one slight problem with ABC. If you are playing all of those engines inside of your deck, which you kind of have to for ABC, it's like putting a V8 inside of a Honda, like a Honda Civic, like a 94 Honda Civic, and you put a V8 in it. How? And this is no shot to ABC players, as A, B, and C have some amazing effects. As long as you can keep on linking them off, you can pretty much get an infinite loop. But if you are investing that much time, effort, and money into an ABC deck, you could just kind of like drop the V8 into a competitive, already established Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck and do a lot better. That's the problem with ABC, unfortunately. Engines help, but not if your deck becomes pretty much the engine. Moving forward, where would I put Adamancipators? Adamancipators are actually the originators of Wandering Griffin Rider inside of the main board. I'm still going to put them in rogue though, and allow me to explain. Quackimiru Guardian is your Wandering Griffin Rider, so you don't need an adventure token engine. Also, this deck can play Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer, and if it does see the parts in excavation, well, just put them to the bottom of the deck. The problem with Adamancipator is that there are so many hand traps inside of this current format, it's really risky to try to get as many Adamantimator excavations as possible when your opponent just realizes, yo, if I hand trap about 2 or 3 times, there ain't really much he can do. On top of that, Adamantimator doesn't have the appropriate crackback, being able to come back into the game after losing their full board as some of the other combo decks, but this deck is actually still really good inside of this format just overall. Invoked just topped the YCS, the first YCS we've had in 2 years. So of course we gotta put it in tier 1. We gotta reestablish Invoke from tier 2 to tier 1 because it felt really weird. But why the sudden change? Well, the first thing I gotta say, the branded fusion engine that's coming out makes this deck bonkers. It is literally ridiculous how much more powerful the Invoke deck gets because of branded fusion. Ridiculous. Can't really give you all the information now. Let me know down below in the comment section if that's what you want to see. We'll probably have it in tomorrow's video, but the reason why is because it adds another layer of cards that your opponent must deal with, and then you follow with your invoked engine. Can't go into your link monsters? Who really cares? Branded fusion put a light monster in your graveyard anyways. This deck is also really good because of super polymerization. Some of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are very susceptible to super polymerization, and your deck is not only good if you can play it inside of the main board, but if you can take advantage of your own monsters plus your opponent in case you ever get in a bind. Altergeist. I genuinely want to put Altergeist in the tier 2 status. You guys have already seen what those decks that don't need their extra deck can do, especially if you've watched the YCS on Saturday and Sunday. But I'm still going to go ahead and play it safe and put it in the rogue status. This deck is extremely good because those trap cards can really help you out in a tough bind. And keep in mind, when those trap cards resolve, Altergeist Multi-Faker can summon itself to the side of the field, as well as Silquitos for an extra form of disruption. So you essentially get 2 disruptions plus a follow-up in the form of 1 hand trap, which is amazing for Altergeist. Where does Altergeist struggle? Well, playing into an already established board. That's the problem. If your opponent already has an established Yu-Gi-Oh! Board, this deck could be, it could struggle in that particular department. B-Troopers. I actually think B-Troopers, I would put them, I'm gonna make a bold take. I'm gonna put B-Troopers right here. And B-Troopers have not been seeing play recently because rightfully so, they hits the Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer, the power creep with the Adventure Token engine. But this deck actually gets secretly better with Fallen Albaz Strike structure that can allow me to explain. A lot of the cards that we're going to start seeing, like Prank Kids Pandemonium and Branded Fusion, are fusion spell cards. And players have already been stockpiling on cards like Retaliating Sea to be able to stop them. Well, what's a deck that can take full advantage of the Contact Sea cards? Easily B-Troopers. Not only can this deck search it, it can abuse it, it can summon it, it can mainboard it, it can take advantage of every aspect that there is for these sea cards inside of the main board and really do some damage. Also, Contact Sea is not a bad card inside of this deck. And keep in mind, Flying Sea does search insect monsters from the deck to the hand. So it's like a win-win-win for B-Trooper players. Very, very solid rogue deck plus structure deck Albaz Strike. Blue Eyes White Dragon. Blue Eyes White Dragon, as Pegasus would say. Where exactly do I put the boys in blue? Now, I've been disrespecting y'all for quite some time, and I'm still gonna disrespect y'all. Oh no, what are you doing, baby? It's not in the list, but I'm still putting you there. Now, I'm just playing. Blue Eyes players, I've been giving you a lot. I definitely think that you are a pretty decent deck. Blue Eyes is really good at making combos, and it makes some pretty decent combos with Hockley Fabrics and being able to summon free Blue Eyes monsters. On top of that, one thing that I do like is Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon being able to manipulate what your opponent can activate in the graveyard and still being able to special summon a Synchro monster from the deck to the side of the field. Is Blue Eyes a tier 2 deck? No. I think Blue Eyes players are definitely out of their mind if they think that's true, but it's a very, very solid deck for the players that really love Blue Eyes. Moving forward, Cyber Dragon actually gets way better, like ridiculously better with the new branded Albaz Strike. This deck actually gets a 1-card OTK. That's right, guys. You get a 1-card OTK with Cyber Dragon through Branded Fusion. You also can play Red Eyes Dark Dragoon inside of this deck without having to play Red Eyes or Dark Magician. On top of that, the Hex Sealed Light Fusion is amazing for this strategy. You can just summon it to your side of the field and then use its effect with a Cyber Dragon to be able to summon a Light Fusion from your deck to your side of the field. There is actually so much that Cyber Dragon gets from the Branded Fusion Albaz Strike structure deck. It might even be here at the end of the day, but right now I'm gonna keep it in the Rogue. DDD, hands down, guys. I feel like DDD is a solid, I'm gonna go ahead, even with not enough tops, it's still a tier 1 deck. The reason why DDD is so amazing in today's format is because players still don't understand what DDD does. It's a long wall of text for every single card. If Gilgamesh resolves, then they'll be able to place up Scales, and then they'll be able to Pendulum Summon. They can Link Summon, they can Synchro Summon, and they can Fusion Summon. It's really hard to shut this deck out when you try to, but even when it does get shut out of some of its mechanics, as long as it can still Exceed Summon, you're still in trouble, as being able to make Deuce King Machina X to be able to absorb opponent's cards, which isn't once per turn. It can be summoned multiple times in a turn, only one can be on the field, and it can have free access to Divine Arsenal Zeus. DDD is extremely solid, and I give it a glowing praise as a tier 1 deck, though it did not do as well as we would hope at the YCS. Now, where exactly is Despia post Albaz Strike? Well, you'd love it if you are a Despia player to know that you are finally in the meta changer category. It is everyone's demise. Despia has so much going for it post Albaz Strike. Some players may not even see it just yet. Yes, I understand. It is the only strategy that can consistently search Branded Fusion through the effect of Alubergestia Despia. That's good. That's great. That's amazing. And Guardian Chimera is amazing, especially if you can still play the Frightfur engine and have polymerization in your graveyard. That's all cute. But what players still forgot about Despia is that some of the best hand traps in Yu-Gi-Oh! Do not affect this deck. If you built this deck right, Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit doesn't really do much against Despias. Also, that Dimensional Shifter card that a lot of players were fearful for, Despia don't care. The theater is set for the Despia strategy, as it is looking to become one of the top contenders inside of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game and change the entire meta. The problem with Despia is that it is extremely fusion reliant, so we might start seeing some cards to counter it. But until then, the eyes are all on Despia. Zombie World, guys. Where exactly would I put Zombie World? I think Zombie World's a very, very, very solid rogue deck. I do think it's a lot better in this situation than it was in previous situations. But the problem with Zombie World is that there aren't a lot of top decks that necessarily care about their typing, and Zombie World really needs their typing to survive. Now, don't get me wrong, Rivalry of the Warlords plus Zombie World is still really good. It's against some of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! And this deck has obviously an amazing Floowandereeze matchup, but that's not enough to keep it in the top contention tables. That's not enough to put it into tier 2. I gotta give it to it though. It is a solid and getting better deck. Master Duel, this deck's cracked though. It's completely cracked to Master Duel. Dragon Mommies, guys. I gotta say, tier 2 Dragon Mommies are ridiculous because of Branded Fusion. I think people may not have noticed the requirements of Dragon Maid Shu needing a Dragon Maid and a dragon, and that Branded Fusion summons a dragon and can send dragons from the deck to the graveyard like Dragon Maids. Ridiculous. Dragon Maids got the card that they needed to be able to start off a little bit faster, and that was genuinely Dragon Maid's biggest problem, not being able to start off as fast as you would want to. Also, another thing, Heretic Seal of Heavenly Spheres can summon Fallen Albaz to your side of the field. You're welcome, guys. That is ridiculous for both Dragon Maids and Dragon Link. Drytron. Oh, man. We've seen a lot of Drytron over the YCS, but unfortunately not a lot of them topped. I still think it's a very solid tier 2 deck. Maybe the best tier 2 deck we have. This deck can search Artifact Lancia. That's pretty good. And granted, Artifact Lancia isn't going to be as powerful with Branded Fusion running around. It's still going to be good, just not as powerful. This is still really, really good. Also, keep in mind why the Drytron strategy cannot use the Adventure Token package and shouldn't be able to use the Branded Fusion package. Predaplant Vert Anaconda still exists, so if you really wanted to get genuinely inventive, then yes, this deck very much can. Outledge, guys. Where do we put Outledge? Easily. Oh, man, I'm going to put it in Meta Changer. Look, what happened at YCS was no fluke. 5 Outledge decks topping? And there was actually pure Eldritch decks. No Cybers cards. What is going on? The reason why Eldritch is so good right now is because not only can it interact with monsters in the graveyard like Destiny Hero, Phoenix Enforcer, with Raketo, of course, it also can just summon a 3,500 attack monster that can't be destroyed. Extremely problematic in the game. When you combine that with all of the floodgates that this deck can play, the answer is yes. Play every single floodgate inside of this deck. Eldritch becomes increasingly hard to beat as a trap-based deck. Now, if you turn it on the flip side and look at it as a Cybers Eldritch combo deck, it's a fairly good mid-range deck that can still play some of the best cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! And then flip back to its Eldritch cards when times get tough. Easily, Eldritch is a meta changer Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck that you must watch out for. Heroes, extremely solid tier 2 deck. I think that Heroes are best served as a going second OTK type deck. Masked Hero Dark Law, its best days are behind him. If you ask me, again, still the best use for Mass Change is to dodge cards like Effect Veiler and Infinite Impermanence and stuff like that. But overall, Heroes are still very, very solid. Extremely expensive. Can't play any of the engines, but still really good. Maybe they can play the engine. Maybe they can play some fusion engines. Well, of course they can play Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer. It can hard make Phoenix Enforcer, and that's what probably keeps this deck a little bit more relevant. Being able to make the Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer plus the Plasma, that's pretty cracked. Shaddolls, guys. Shaddolls actually just topped the YCS event, which is crazy. And it only gets even more crazy when Branded Fusion comes out. Another strategy that can completely abuse that like no other. I know it says lock you into fusion summons, but the only thing you're probably going to be doing with this strategy is fusion summoning. Keep in mind, since Prank Kids is one of the top decks, then Shaddoll Winda completely stunts on that particular strategy. Really hard for them to special summon multiple times when they just can't. Live Twin, easily one of the tier 2 decks. The thing I like about Live Twins is that you can play as many hand traps and disruptor cards as you want, then cross out Designator to prevent your opponent from doing it to you, and then Live Twin combo off. This deck is ridiculously good and can be extremely expensive if you decide to go to collector's route, but overall, a solid deck. Floowandereeze, oh man, guys. I feel like Floowandereeze shapes the meta just like how Eldritch shapes the meta. A couple weeks ago, we said that Artifact Scythe was not a good card, and we had a lot of glue eaters saying, "Oh, Kelly, you're wrong," and now we're looking at strategies that don't need their extra deck whatsoever that are doing extremely well for themselves. Floowandereeze and Eldritch definitely shaped the game because they force players to think twice about playing Artifact Scythe. And yeah, they're still really, really good decks on their own, even without it. Fluffles are a solid rogue deck. I put Fluffles closer to here. Very solid rogue deck. What I like about Fluffles is that it's extremely resilient when going second in OTK. Where Fluffles don't do as well is when they go first, because their boards that they make, yes, you can make Appaloosa and Totally Awesome and stuff like that, but it don't cut out like you used to, guys. Can't play a lot of the engines either, so unfortunately, Fluffles are, it's one of those great going second decks, but can struggle going first. Dark Magician. I'm actually going to make a bold claim with Dark Magician, guys. I'm going to say Dark Magician is a tier 2 deck. Easy. Dark Magician got the branded engine, and that helps this deck so much. And not only on top of that, Magician Souls can shuffle in those deck cards. Oh my God. I've never seen Dark Magician this consistent. It's almost ridiculous how consistent that this deck can be. And consistency is key for being able to top some really good events. Now, Lyrilusc did get a lot worse inside of this format. And the reason why Lyrilusc got way worse, Tri-Brigade Lyrilusc got way worse, is because a lot of strategies are being able to not only stop you on your first summon in your first attempt, they can stop you on your comeback attempt. On top of that, the limitation of Lyrilusc Recital Starling does hurt a ton, giving this deck less abilities to search and get into the cards that it needs. And then the banning of, you know, the Simorgh link, that definitely hurt too. So yeah, those things in combination have definitely hit this deck where it hurts the most. Earth Machine can easily be a tier 2 strategy if they follow the same guide that the Eldritch strategy does, which is don't rely on your extra deck and play a ton of floodgates. As we already noticed, that can play Gozen Map, which is extremely good against Prank Kids. It can play Skill Drain, which is extremely good against most of the other meta. Very, very solid deck inside of this Yu-Gi-Oh format that can really turn some heads. Same thing with Madolche. When going first, this deck is actually really good because you can set up and protect your floodgates with Madolche Promenade. And then with going second, I mean, this is a walking OTK, guys. This is a walking bucket. One card OTKs for everybody with the Madolche strategy. Mech Knight. Mech Knight's a good tier 2 deck. Mech Knight's a good tier 2 deck. It can incorporate, again, some of the best cards in the game. The Adventure Token Engine is a deck, or is a strategy that this deck can incorporate, since it doesn't necessarily need its normal summoned effect. It can also play, of course, Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer. The Branded Engine, I'm not 100% sure because it likes to go into the extra deck non-fusion monsters, but I think it can figure out a way if you really wanted to play it inside of this deck. Ultimately, really good deck when going first, for going second, and when going first, World Legacy Secrets does a lot of cleanup work for you. Plunder Patrol is a tier, I feel like, yeah, Plunder Patrol is easily a tier 1 strategy that is not topped at YCS. Seriously, this deck is kind of, not even kind of good. When there are light and dark monsters inside of the format, especially post Owlbash Strike, yo, being able to summon Plunder Patrol Lists and Plunder Patrol Ship Mork to your side of the field, those are amazing cards. Also, the Adventure Engine, correct for this deck. I can't think of too many other strategies that gain so much advantage with the adventure strategy inside of your strategy, wanting to discard cards like Whitebeard from your hand to the graveyard, and Magician Souls, allowing you to dig deeper into your deck and providing so much combo potential. Now, as you guys should already know, Prank Kids are a meta changer deck. If we had to put this in order, I would have to say Prank Kids are 1, Despia would probably be 2 when the dust settles, Outlich would be 4, and Floowandereeze would be 3. So if we had to put it right here, I think this would be a great lineup of the best decks of the format. Then the decks that can definitely really compete with the best decks. The tier 2 decks are very solid decks, and then the rogue decks require the most amazing pilot, but can be very successful. Rocket Dragon Link, easily a tier 1 strategy. I'm actually going to go put it above all the other strategies. Again, Heretic Seal of Heavenly Seers can summon Owlbash, so this deck can definitely play Branded Fusion and make some huge splash plays, so watch out for that. And then even before, it was already doing some amazing things. When the new set comes out that introduces the other Owlbash cards that completely make us think twice about playing Dragon Link, we'll have to readdress it, but until then, this is a solid strategy. Solomon Great is really good rogue, guys. Tons and tons of hand traps. You could play the Adventure Token Engine, but keep in mind, if you're playing the Adventure Token Engine, you can't gain the effect of Mirage Stalio and vice versa, because if you do use Mirage Stalio, you won't be able to use the Wandering Griffin Rider, so life sucks. But outside of that, it can use both the Phoenix Enforcer and the Destiny Hero Engine, which makes this deck fairly formidable. Sharks are, I would probably put Sharks towards here. Again, another hand trap, almost any hand trap, just like how Burning Abyss Problem can pretty much stop your combo midway and force you to end your turn, which really, really sucks. But I think that Sharks are a very, very fun deck, and in the right circumstances can 100% compete. Now, I think almost every single one of these decks is tier 1, which is crazy. Sky Strikers, easy tier 1 deck, guys. Widow Anchor, amazing. That is a Snatch Steel plus a Forbidden Chalice. There's also Shark Cannon, amazing. That is a DD Crow or a Monster Reborn. This is just ridiculous deck, especially since players have realized that the Adventure Token Engine they don't even use it like how you're supposed to use it. They just use it to put spell cards in their graveyard so they can get the effects of their Sky Striker cards, which is ridiculous. Make Predaplant Vert, Anaconda, Destiny Hero, Phoenix Enforcer, and they're good. Sword Soul, I did have them at tier 2 for the longest. I think tier 1 is solid. Not only did some actually show some showing inside of the format. I'm not sure if it was more Tingy or if it was actual Sword Soul. But regardless, I'm going to go ahead and give them their props. Good deck, make some amazing boards. But this deck is better. Like, I mean, the Tingy version of the deck is better in my opinion because you don't need to use your normal summon, giving you access to cards like the Wandering Griffin Rider Engine, where this deck can't necessarily use. I don't think that this deck is a bad deck at all. I actually think it's a good pickup if you guys are starting to look into other strategies for the future, because this very much will come back into the meta, kind of like how Drytron did in my opinion. Chaos Lightsworn, Chaos Thunder Dragon, Chaos whatever you want it to be. Solid rogue deck. Very, very solid rogue deck. Making Archlord Christia will make, I think, almost every single deck scoop, but keep in mind it's just like the Scythe Lock. These two decks don't care. So you got to be mindful of that. Phantom Knights are solid tier 2. I actually wanted this deck to be tier 1. I thought it was going to be tier 1. Not enough strong showings over the weekend, but still a very, very solid deck. I think once players give up the Scythe Lock for this particular strategy and just focus on just beating the opponent, seriously, just beating the opponent, this deck has an incredible grind game that can almost last forever. Tri-Brigade is post Albaz. I'm going to say tier 1. I'm gonna make a bold take and I'm going to say tier 1. This deck is tier 1 post Albaz structure that can allow me to explain. This deck gets some ridiculous combos for it. Like, it gets some insane combos and actually a really good crack pack. The pure version of this deck, I think 100% will be way better than the Lyrilless, but only time will tell because this deck is still good. Virtual World can't play most of the engines. It can't play Destiny Hero, Phoenix Enforcer. It can play the Adventure Token engine, but it winds up playing it a little bit more awkward, which is weird. And Virtual World QB Shinshin doesn't really affect this deck, doesn't really affect this deck, doesn't really affect this deck. Kind of, but they can kind of get over it before it starts affecting them that bad. So it's in a really weird spot where Virtual World is just a solid tier 2 deck. Now, of course, this is standing for Based, 100% a tier 1 deck. Based is Adventure Token Synchro. The ability to be able to play all of the engines inside of one deck and synchro summon into the most powerful cards like Baron de Fleur is what makes this deck pop. And unfortunately, that's what we're going to have to deal with for the while. Now, this is actually a representation of branded decks in total. I think that branded decks in total are 100% going to be a meta changer. If your deck can incorporate branded in its entirety, you will probably bump up a tier, like how Dark Magician has rose up from Rogue to tier 2, like how Tri-Brigade has rose up from tier 2 to the lower end of tier 1, because this is extremely powerful for strategies. It is essentially a shut-off fusion for just about any single Yu-Gi-Oh deck, and I genuinely think it will change the meta completely. And that is all that we have for the tier list today. Please let me know, what did you think about it? Do you think I'm wrong on certain spots? Do you like or agree what I have to say? Are you ready for me to talk about those strategies that are completely busted post Albaz Strike? Of course, if you want to see more amazing content, you can go ahead and check out these videos. Also, be sure to check out Master Duel Cali for more Master Duel content, as I'll catch you on the next one.